Hello and welcome to the Right Recap, your weekly political podcast. I'm Oliver,
I'm Daniel.
and sadly Joe can't be with us this week.
Oh,
Join us as we dredge through the calm and the peaceful
and the hard and the fast.
of this last week. So, a less tumultuous week in British politics than the last, but one filled with much more legislative wonder. There are only 65 days left until Britain formally leaves the EU, currently with no deal. And that means May is currently pushing forward with her Plan B, which is really just Plan A pushed harder, to attempt to rule out no deal. This comes with a whole host of amendments. Frontbench opposition have tabled an amendment to rule out a disastrous no deal. Yvette Cooper has tabled an amendment to extend Article 50 until the 31st of December if an agreement is not reached by the 26th of February.
Yo, wait. That's my birthday. Hey, go on, Yvette Cooper.
Dominic Grieve has tabled an amendment to allow 6 days of debate before the 26th of March. With backbenchers able to vote on amendments to express the will of the House at the end. Stella Creasy has tabled an amendment which requires the government to ask the EU to postpone Brexit Day for an unspecified period and give the public more say in the Brexit process through a 250-member Citizens' Assembly. Now, this Citizens' Assembly was used in Northern Ireland prior to the abortion referendum, and it will comprise a representative sample of the population to make recommendations on the Brexit process after 10 weeks of consideration. It would be supported by an expert advisory group and would require the government to respond within 2 weeks. Hilary Benn tabled an amendment to allow the Commons to hold a series of indicative votes. Frank Field and Ed Visey tabled an amendment for votes on a wider range of choices. Rachel Reeves tabled an amendment to postpone Brexit Day for an unspecified period of time. Dame Caroline Spellman and Jack Dromey tabled an amendment to block Brexit no deal. Andrew Morrison tabled an amendment to attempt to set an expiration date for the backstop in law. John Barron tabled an amendment to strike down the backstop. Tom Brake tabled an amendment to create a cross-party committee to control Brexit. Now, an important note here is that none of these are binding in law, apart from Yvette Cooper's, if the subsequent bill that she's pushing for is passed through, as that would, of course, be legally binding. And in other news, earlier today, very, very recently, Brexiteer Jacob Rees-Mogg, chair of the ERG, an influential group of Tory MPs, has said that the PM's deal could be reformed to win his support, noting to a group of Brexiteers that he was more optimistic that things were going our way. So, Dan, what do you think of those amendments?
That's a lot of amendments. Wow. That is a big boy amount of amendments, to be fair.
So let's go through them one by one and just have a little chat, I think. What do you think of the amendment by the front bench to just rule out no deal?
Well, that's a good question. I think ruling out no deal is a bit stupid because, if we don't have a deal by Brexit Day, what are we going to do? Because, we've ruled out no deal, but we don't have a deal. So, better come up with a deal in 3 hours. Good idea. What do you think?
Yeah, I essentially agree with you.
Oh my god! No way!
I think we have to have the no deal threat looming to try and
Yeah.
force things to happen.
Yeah,
If we
100%.
get rid of it, we just create problems for ourselves. So, moving on. Yvette Cooper's amendment to extend Article 50 until the 31st of December, if an agreement is not reached. By your birthday.
Yay! 26th of February, shout out.
What do you think?
What do I think? I don't think that much, so give me a bit of time. You say what you think first.
So I think that this is a poor idea. If an agreement isn't reached by the 26th of February, I think we have to make the point that extending Article 50 at all, we run the risk of not having Brexit. We run the risk of that not helping much. If we can't agree a deal by the 26th of February, what's to say we'll agree one by the 31st of December? It just creates it keeps the uncertainty going. I don't think it's a smart idea. What do you think, Dan?
I'm going to have to disagree with you there, Ollie. I believe that it's a good deal, but I think that my girl, Yvette, or however you say it, has to add something to it, where it says, Brexit has to happen. Because I think our deadline is currently too short, in my opinion. I think it's too short to come up with a good deal that will serve the people well and allow us to have a smooth exit from the European Union. By
The thing
extending
is-
Article 50, it gives us more time to make this deal. And I understand your point of we might not have a good deal by the 31st of December, but I think it's more likely that we'll come to an arrangement with the opposition
I
by
think
the 31st of December.
I would
than
make
by-
two arguments there, to be honest. One of them is that we already have a good deal.
Yeah, but in
And
the
if you want-
opposition's
and
eyes,
if-
by 118 conservative rebels,
And
eyes,
if you
it's
want
not
to
a good deal.
if you want to avoid no deal, agree the deal. And at the same time, I think I get what you're trying to say, which is that you have to add Brexit must happen. But
Yeah,
but by extending it, you're not saying Brexit isn't going to happen. But I think
that was
there's a
one
subconscious.
of your points.
My point was that we run the risk of it not happening. Adding Brexit must happen is not going to help that at all, because we
Hey,
already
it
all
could.
agree Brexit must happen. What the problem with extending Article 50 is that you just push it back and back and back. And yes, Brexit will happen, but it just won't happen. We can say it will happen, but it won't. And so sorting that out by adding, I don't know quite how you'd enshrine that in law, but adding the type of qualifier that you stated, I don't think would be at all helpful or at
Should
all
we agree to disagree?
workable. No, I think you're wrong.
No, I think you're
Dominic
wrong.
Greaves' amendment to... Yeah, well, I'm going to mute you. Dominic Greaves' amendment to allow 6 days of debate before the 26th of March, with backbenchers able to vote on amendments to express the will of the House at the end. What do you think of that?
Sorry, I wasn't listening. Hold on, let me read it. Dominic Greaves' amendment to allow 6 days of debate before the 26th of March, with backbenchers able to vote on amendments to express the will of the House at the end. I don't think that's a bad idea.
I don't see what it does, really.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a bit useless.
Yeah.
It's
it's not
like-
really a good idea either. I mean,
I think that would be like getting a group of, you know, I'm going to use a football analogy, so bear with me.
oh,
That'd be like
God.
getting a group of Celtic supporters
Yes.
and a group of Rangers supporters,
Yes.
sitting them down and saying, let's discuss the fact that we don't like each other.
Yeah.
And then at the end, we can all agree that we don't like each other and have no preference for anything.
Yeah.
And we already knew that, so that I don't think it would be much help.
Very productive.
What about Miss Creasy's amendment, which would require the government to ask the EU to postpone Brexit Day for an unspecified period, and give the public more say in the Brexit process through a 250-member Citizens' Assembly?
Well, personally, I don't think that's a very good idea. Mainly because, you know, we have Parliament for a reason. What about you, Ollie?
I think that's Citizens' Assembly. Now, I'm being cynical, I know. I think that's just claptrap for group of Remainers. I do think that we would run the risk of it won't help much because of the exact same problems as before. Oh yes, look at this. All of the citizens have different views on how we should go forward with Brexit. So do the MPs. That was useful. And I think in the same way, at 250 members, that's very, very small.
Yeah, it's not
Very, very
representative.
And I think just second referendum.
That was the best joke we've had in this podcast.
You know, I think just we have Parliament, like you said. Let's just let Parliament maybe make some decisions and stop absolving themselves of responsibility like pathetic weasels. Moving on. Hilary Benn amendment to allow the Commons to hold a series of indicative votes on what they would like to do going forward.
I mean, sure.
Do you know what that means, Dan?
Yeah, yes, but I don't see really the purpose of it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
I agree. Okay, what about Frank Field's amendment for votes on a wider range of choices?
Hold on. If I pause a bit, I just don't understand the purpose of why that amendment would work. It's not that I don't know what it means.
Okay, Dan. Okay.
Stop.
What about Rachel Reeves' amendment to just postpone Brexit Day? Let's just postpone
No,
it.
just get out.
Hey
just
Rachel, when until Rachel? Let's just postpone it. Let's just postpone Brexit Day.
get out of here.
Yeah, I think that's that is a fat pile of let's just not do Brexit wrapped up in a can right there.
Oh, we'll do it sometime. Who knows?
Okay. What about Dame Caroline Spellman's amendment to block No Deal Brexit? We've already basically had this discussion.
Isn't that just the front page
What about
amendment?
Morrison's amendment to attempt to set an expiration date for the backstop? Setting an expiration date for the backstop arguably doesn't actually help anything because the EU won't accept it. So I don't really see the point there. Moving on. John Barron has done a similar thing, amendment to strike down the backstop. We just had that discussion. It wouldn't really work. Because the EU, there is no unilateral thing here. The EU won't accept it. So there's no point in agreeing to that because it wouldn't actually contribute anything. So what about Tom Brake's amendment to create a cross-party committee to control the Brexit process?
See, personally, I don't think that's a very bad idea. And I think you're going to disagree with me. So let's hear your opinion. Ollie?
My opinion, I think it's a bad idea.
Why do you think it's a bad idea, Ollie?
I will tell you why I think it is a bad idea. Because there is no consensus among the major parties about what Brexit is.
Yeah.
So there are many views that cannot be rectified, or there cannot be consensus about. For example, Labour want that bad example. The Lib Dems want a people's vote. The Conservatives do not, under any circumstances, want a people's vote. There's no in between there. And
yeah.
I think setting up a cross-party committee to control Brexit.
Although I do think there are some problems that can be resolved.
I do think there are, but setting up a cross-party committee to control Brexit doesn't achieve anything, and it just seizes more power from the executive. It's not the role of Parliament to do those kind of things.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from.
And now the news that Jacob Rees-Mogg, chair of the ERG, has said the PM's deal could be reformed to win his support, and presumably the support of his gang of Brexiteer MPs.
That's good. At least he's open-minded.
Yeah, I think that's fair. At least he's open-minded.
Yeah.
Indeed. So now, moving on to MP of the Week. Insert fun jingle here. Our MP of the Week this week is Mr. the Honourable Jacob Rees-Mogg, MP. Now, this is literally to appease Joel. I want to point that out. Joel, for those of you that don't know, is a friend of ours who is a Brexit fanatic and loves Jacob Rees-Mogg. Absolutely adores him. I do think positive of Jacob Rees-Mogg this week is he is moving towards more compromise. So that's nice.
Well done.
Yeah, that's our MP of the Week. Round of applause for him.
Yeah.
Yay! MP of the Week. Moving on to US politics.
Yay!
So, Dan, kick us off.
Okay. So, Pelosi tells Trump that there will be no State of Union address until the government opens again. And also, the Senate will be holding competing votes on Thursday on President Trump's proposal to spend $5.7 billion on a border wall, and on a Democratic bill that would fund the government through Pardon me. On a Democratic bill that would fund the government through to February 8th without a wall. It will be the first time the Senate has stepped off the sidelines to try and end the month-long government shutdown.
And that was in the words of the the New York Times.
New York Times.
If only they would use different fonts. That's what I say.
Yeah.
So what do we think about Pelosi? So basically, Pelosi. Let me just outline the full story in a bit more depth.
Yeah, sure.
State of the Union was set for the 29th of January when Pelosi invited Trump on the 3rd. Trump accepted then received a second letter from Pelosi on the 16th saying no. He then sent her a message saying yes, and she sent one back saying no.
Yeah.
So what do we think of this, really?
It's a bit petty. I'm not gonna lie. I understand why she's doing it, but I don't understand at the same time.
So why do you think she is doing it then?
What?
So why do you think she is doing it then?
I mean, she doesn't like the government shutdown, but she's making it carry on at the same time, and she doesn't like the fact that he wants to build a wall, which I mean is going to happen.
Is going to happen.
Just stop.
Okay, I just think it's all a bit ridiculous. I mean, I think the State of the Union generally is not as productive as people think, because it doesn't really add to government accountability. It just basically is, oh, I wonder which groups will stand up and clap the president when he says this. Oh, not the Democrats. Wonder why? Probably because they're Democrats. So the State of the Union address, I think, is pretty pointless anyway. But beside that, purely because the president isn't pulled from the House, it's different over here with PMQs, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But I think it's, Pelosi's allowed to do it. It's gonna annoy Trump. It's just all a bit pointless. Thankfully, we might have an end to the government shutdown.
Yeah.
Soon, though it has passed a month. So that's fairly interesting. Now let's go on to how we might see the difference. Let's talk about the Senate. Dan?
I am the Senate.
Yeah, I had a feeling that was coming. The Senate is gonna be voting on Thursday,
Yes.
which is
The 24th.
it is tomorrow, or the day that this video is going up. And actually, at this point, it's probably a good reminder to click that subscribe button, hit the like, and make sure to press that notification bell so that you get all of our notifications on uploads and live streams. We are gonna be live streaming on the 29th of January. That is the second key vote for Theresa May. We're going to be live streaming then. We're going to be live streaming basically everything big that happens.
Yep.
Anything big that happens, we'll be on it. So make sure
if the government shutdown ends, we'll probably stream.
Make sure you hit that notification bell. Anyway, so the Senate will be voting on bills. And I think it's good to see that there's some progress being made. Some initiative being taken by senators on both sides of the House. But I think the government shutdown really does need to end soon. Someone needs to give way, and this is a good way to do it, I think, actually. So we will see the results tomorrow. A good way to find out our opinion would be to check our Twitter page, where we'll be making sure to tweet out our opinion on all the issues we discuss in this podcast as they develop throughout the rest of the week. So,
plug.
Minimal news for US politics, other than the Make America Great Again students, which we don't really want to discuss purely because it's pointless to discuss it. We think, but because it's.
Let's go no further.
I kind of agree with you, actually. Let's go no further. But I just want to clarify that kind of like identity politics and harsh partisanship just is a bit pointless. It's an American thing. We don't need it. We'll move on to stupid question of the week.
I would not like to comment on anything.
Stupid question of the week with Daniel. Let's go.
Yes. Okay, so Ollie, you said you've heard it this week. Who did you hear it from?
I actually can't remember, but I do remember it being, I think, in my religious studies class. Shout out to the religious studies class. Oh, I don't know who.
Let's go. All right. So the question this week is: do Australians have to wear magnets in their shoes?
And
I think this is a very good question.
Let me just quickly ask our resident Australian, Daniel Roby Branch.
Yes.
Do you have to wear magnets in your shoes when you're in Australia?
Now, no, we don't actually.
But then how don't you fall off?
Gravity! Wow, who would have known?
Yes, but gravity pulls you down. Some people. Moving
Oh.
on to world
boom.
politics. Our
World politics.
favourite topic of this week is in world politics. Venezuelan military coup. I love Venezuelan politics.
Who doesn't?
Because they're always so up in the air.
Yeah.
They're always up in the air. And
Yeah.
they annoy Camilla,
Yeah, Camilla.
who is a friend of ours. So we're going to be discussing the Venezuelan military coup. Dan, give us a bit of info.
Right. So, it's called the Venezuelan military coup. So the opposition leader, how do you pronounce that, Ollie? I don't know how to pronounce that.
I'm not even going to try.
Yeah. Guaido? I don't know how to pronounce it, but he declared himself president and won the US's support. And now the US is refusing to remove Oh, I have a cough. Sorry. Now the US is refusing to remove diplomats under Maduro's orders.
And why is that important? I'm going to just give a little bit more background to that. A small group of military men on Monday led a coup and attempted to overthrow the Venezuelan government. It was crushed, though I think 4 people were kidnapped. The group of assailants was, however, detained. So, the opposition leader did declare himself president and won the US's support, which officially means he, in terms of, in the eyes of the US, the biggest power in the world, is the legitimate president. And so, the US refusing to remove their diplomats shows that the president, I don't know what really to call him, but Maduro is no longer a functional president of Venezuela. I mean, if he was at all functional before, he certainly has no legitimacy or authority now. And the US are essentially recognising his opposition leader, and so are refusing to take his orders. This is a big deal in Venezuelan politics. It signals a big shift, and the current American recognised president, Guaido, as we're calling him, I think that's right.
It has got a little accent on the O, just for the viewers.
Yeah. Has said he will call for general elections. So this should be an interesting story to watch. Where can you watch that, Dan? Where can you look at our opinions on things?
Is it Twitter?
It is Twitter. You should follow us at Twitter.
What's our Twitter, Ollie?
That's a good question, Dan. What is our Twitter?
Link
Link in the description. Can't wait.
Isn't it @C_conservatives or something?
Yeah, something like that. We will link it in the description.
We will put it on the screen right now. I will edit it onto the screen right now.
Yeah, because Dan's
It will
editing
be
this now.
flashy. Yes, I am editing it now. So just get ready for some good editing.
In other world news, in Egypt, what happened this week, Dan?
So an Egypt TV host has been jailed for interviewing
an
a gay
Egypt
man.
TV host.
Yeah.
Is the program
Egypt
Egypt?
TV.
Is it Egypt TV? Okay, I just want to make sure that wasn't a spelling error.
Yeah, he has been jailed for interviewing a gay man. So his name was Mohammed El Gihiyati. He has been sentenced to 1 year of hard labour for promoting homosexuality by a court in Giza.
I mean, I think... Yeah, no, you carry on, Dan.
No, you carry on, it's fine.
Yeah, I think this just shows the kind of... the regressive policies that still exist in a lot of particularly majority Islamic countries, against the gay community or the LGBTQ plus
it's not
community.
Egypt. Homosexuality isn't explicitly criminalized, but the authorities over the recent years have been increasingly cracking down on the LGBT community.
For example, no SpongeBob.
Which is very, very, very ethically questionable. Like, it's just wrong.
Thank you for telling us, Dan. I feel like every episode we're going to reassert that killing gay people is wrong.
Yeah, it is.
It is. We can agree on this, and this kind of stuff. I don't know how we really tackle it. We need to
I don't
use
know
our
why
soft
it still
power
happens in
far
the modern
more.
world.
In the modern, in 20, it's 2017.
It's 2019, mate.
It's current year.
Oh, right, yeah.
And this shouldn't be going on. So
Yeah.
we do need to use our soft power to implement this a little bit more. These kind of
Yeah.
atrocities cannot carry on, and
No,
especially
they
even
can't.
reporting on the gay community can get you jailed.
Yeah.
That is something I think
Ridiculous.
phenomenal in its in its oddness, in its absurdity. So yeah, that's our little tiny nugget of world news for you this week.
Yes. You can cling on to it and eat it.
And now we
You get
move
it
on
because it's a nugget.
to the best part.
Do you get... Oh, Ollie, do you get it?
Yeah, I get it. But now we move
Because
on
it's
to
a
the
nugget.
best and favourite part of the podcast.
Devil's Advocate!
Oh!
Whoa!
So, our
Silence.
topics this week. Theresa May's Brexit deal was the best option for the UK. John Bercow was right to allow amendments to the business motion. The best way forward for the UK is a people's vote. Donald Trump is right to shut down the government over Congress's refusal to approve funding for the wall. And our random new topic this week. Ooh, boom. The UK should rule out no deal.
Yes.
Okay. So, our random topic for this week is... the numbers spinning. Boom. The best way forward for the UK is a people's vote.
Yes.
And our devil's advocate is, there are only two of us this week, so it's slightly less intense. Our random number generator says... Dan.
Oh, so I'm agreeing with the statement.
You are indeed agreeing with the statement.
I am agreeing with the statement. All right. I'll go first, yeah? I'll bring out my opening statement. So, the best way forward for the UK is to have a people's vote. This is because in the first referendum, that many lies were told by both sides of the Remain and Leave campaign. Many people now regret their decision from the first election. Many people would like under 18s to vote, like what happened in the Scottish independence referendum. And that is the closure to my opening statement, because I cannot think of any more points right now, because this has been a very surprise question to me, because I thought we were going to do a different question. Alright, now on to you, Ollie.
I'm sorry. What? Okay,
Yeah.
right. So on your first point, which was, I can't remember anymore.
Many lies.
Many lies have been told. Yes. So what you've essentially said there is, on your first point that many lies were told in the referendum, what you've essentially said is, referendums don't work because people lie during referendums. The answer to this is, let's hold a second referendum.
Well, can I answer? Can I clap back now?
Not yet. You can clap back in a second.
Okay, cool.
On your second point, which is that many people regret their decisions. Yes, on both sides. But also, here's the thing. You can regret a divorce. You can regret many things. But some things have to be final. A key example of this would be Dan probably regrets taking A-level maths.
No.
But some things have to be final. And so I don't think it would be fair to have a second referendum when the electorate was told it would be the final decision. On 18-year-olds, under 18s being able to vote. No. That's an entirely different argument, but essentially it boils down to they get the right to vote at 18. That's the way it works. That was the premise of the last referendum. You can't just skew the electorate to try and favour your preferred outcome.
Alright. My turn? Cool.
Clap back, my friend.
Clap back. Alright. So,
He does boxing.
I see where you're coming from, to be honest, but this referendum, it was clarified that it wasn't actually the people's decision to actually leave. It was an advisory referendum, right? So, I think we should have an actual referendum for the people that will say whether we leave or remain in the EU. Not this all, we're gonna take advice from the people, innit? Well, lies. We should have an independent body fact check all of the things that the Leave and the Remain campaign are saying, and we should have a second referendum or a people's vote with this fact check proof to actually give us an accurate representation of the people's opinion, with all of the facts laid out in front of them, with all of they're not lies. They're like, 300 billion to the NHS if we leave. And on under 18s, I understand your point. There should be, just a limit. But I think on big decisions like this that will shape their future, under 18's future, in a massive way, I do feel like that we should be represented, and we should be able to represent ourselves in a referendum.
A few elements here. One, an advisory panel that will fact check everything.
Yes.
That would not work.
Why wouldn't it work, Ollie?
Because so much would be put out, not just by the Leave and Remain campaigns, but by other campaign groups, by individuals. Yeah. Also, the advisory panel would arguably be biased. As a very apt, I would say, historical philosopher once said to me, "It's written by a human, it's biased."
Yeah.
And as well as this, on the point of under 18s, yes, I agree with that they should be represented. So let's just give the vote to 4-year-olds then.
Yes, but they do not have the mental cognition to be able to understand.
14-year-olds?
Huh?
14-year-olds?
It's possible.
12-year-olds?
Nah, that's a limit.
Why?
Because 12-year-olds, all they do is
Do you see the point I'm trying to make here? Someone has to draw the line. We as a democracy draw the line.
I do believe that 16-year-olds do have the mental ability to vote in this referendum.
But we have to draw the line somewhere. We have decided as a democracy where to draw the line, and that line has to be somewhere. It just has to be
somewhere. But I think it should be for 16-year-olds.
The issue there is that the current line is in line with being out of full-time education, or mandatory full-time education, I should say there. You're looking at people who are, you're looking at people who are able to be drafted into the army, etc., etc. Voting comes with responsibilities. Arguing that 16-year-olds should have the franchise because the decision affects them is like saying, well, only 60-year-olds should be able to vote on pension laws. Because on pension reforms for 2019, because only their pensions will be collected in 2019, or X, Y, Z. Every electorate has to make decisions for future generations at some point. We can't always consult the future generations on those outcomes.
Maybe not give them franchise, but or suffrage, but I mean, we didn't really. No one really consulted younger people about it. Essentially, no one I know that a lot of people just went to the polling station and just put a random thing down and voted, which I think if we have a second referendum would change massively, and I think the results would reflect that, and that's also part of the reason why I think we should have a second referendum.
So you think the result would change?
Yes.
Okay, well then what do you make of the latest polling data, which suggests that the percentage of people who would vote Remain versus leave now is around the same as it was just before the first referendum.
Well, is it 54% Remain?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, polling data isn't everything. I mean,
Clearly,
it was wrong before.
Well, it wasn't
It
wrong.
could
It
be
was
right
just
this
the
time.
amount of people voting. I think it's fallacious to say that we can just have a second referendum or a people's vote. Really,
Okay,
the
shall we have
key
closing statements now?
really the key issue here is that the only argument truly for a people's vote is I don't want Brexit to happen. I think that's the right answer. Let's have a people's vote because I'm right. So we should overturn this first vote. No, I do not oppose completely the idea of a second referendum, provided Remain is not on the ballot. The people were asked whether or not they wanted to remain. They said no. We should respect that decision before we risk undermining faith in democracy, not just for young people, but for every member of the electorate who voted to leave, and every future member who will go to vote, knowing that the decision that they take could easily be overturned if it's not the right one in the eyes of the political class. That's what this is really about. Not about getting a fair vote, not about ensuring the will of the British people is represented, but actually it's about making sure that the will of the British people is right in the eyes of politicians and people who don't and didn't fairly represent their views, which arguably caused the vote in the first place.
Well done, Ollie. That was a good closing statement. Now it's my turn. Alright. So, I believe that we should have a second referendum, or a people's vote, but I do agree with Ollie here. Possibly, the people's vote does not have to be a second referendum on Brexit. It could be for May's deal, or for no deal, or for someone else's deal who's just I don't know, some guy from Manchester. Who knows? But overall, I believe that we should have one, a people's vote, because of the unfair referendum, the unfair first referendum that the people had to undergo, and the fact that many people didn't know what they were voting for. The fact that
That's such a poor argument.
it wasn't
that just annoys me. I'm sorry.
the fact that it wasn't the vote wasn't given to under 18s, and yeah, so yeah, maybe we should have a second referendum on May's deal or no deal.
Fair enough. I am just going to point out
I
here.
I would like to interject here. None of that I meant.
I think we should overturn
don't want a
every
second
general
referendum.
election result ever.
Huh?
I think we should overturn every general election result ever because they didn't include 16-year-olds.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the way to go. So
I mean, those were the only fairly logical points I could think of.
I mean, I think that's fair. So now we're moving on to our second round of Devil's Advocate. Ooh, we always have 2 rounds, and this time the topic that is going to be added itself is going to be selected by a random number generator. Ooh. And also this will be the one we debate anyway, so I mean, it's very interesting. It's taking quite a while. I put a few in. I'm very sorry.
Oh, fair.
Oh, okay. So, after the recent news that Sony is going to move their European headquarters to avoid Brexit disruption, moving their headquarters to, I think it's, the Netherlands.
Fair.
Following this recent update, Brexit. Here's the statement we're arguing. Brexit is bad for Britain's place in the world.
Ooh. Who's debate? Who's?
Well, that's what we're about to find. Yeah, I'm doing it this time because that would just be fair.
Yeah. All right. Opening statement.
Brexit will be bad for Britain's place in the world. It is only logical that as we leave a massive bloc in global relations, the European Union, we will face a severe cut in our voice and in our trade ties. We are not able to simply magic up trade deals from wherever with whoever in a very short period of time purely because we're outside of the EU, things take time. And we won't have the political or indeed economic clout of 27 other countries to make these deals with. Arguably, these deals are going to be worse for us. And at the same time, Britain will lose considerable economic power. We lose a seat and a voice at the EU's table. We lose a voice in shaping international relations and international politics and the international agenda. And in this sense, I think it's very hard to argue that Brexit won't impact Britain's place in the world negatively. Therein finishes my opening statement.
Alright. Thank you for that, Ollie. Well done. So, you're saying that Brexit will be bad. What's the question again?
Brexit,
Is it for the economy?
No, Brexit will negatively affect Britain's position in the world.
Position in the world. Alright. So, you're saying that by leaving the EU, it will be bad because it's going to be hard to form trade deals with other countries and stuff like that, and, you know, but surely, being an independent, self-governing nation, not held down by the EU, would be a good thing for our country. It would make us seem stronger to other countries. Also, being the second most powerful country in the world, according to... Ollie, what's it according to?
No.
It's according to something. Because of our our negotiation tactics and our soft influence with people, with with other countries. Surely we will be able to create these trade deals with other countries. These moves by big companies, many of them have stated that it's only temporary. If Brexit, they're preparing for the worst. And I'm positively sure that in the short term it will impact our place in the world negatively, but it will repair over the long run, and in the long run it will do good for our country.
It's clapback time. I understand what you're saying, and I do think the long-term impacts will be lesser than the short-term impacts. But I don't think you can make the argument that leaving a political bloc with the power of the EU will make Britain appear stronger. Britain being alone, having less economic support from the EU, less political support from the EU, less clout, less strength in number, will make them more powerful. Dan?
Oh, it's my turn. Okay. I thought you were going to keep going. Well, it's like the argument of, oh, I'm a strong, independent woman, I don't need no man. It's like, you're showing that you have individuality, you're showing that to other countries. Many countries don't like the EU, they don't like the organisation, and the fact that we're leaving it, we can now join trade ties with those countries. Countries like, I don't know, like China, Russia, maybe Russia.
Russia.
That's a bit of a.
Your argument is
area.
we'll be okay with Russia.
Yeah, you never know.
Hi guys, vote in the straw polls down below. Did Dan do well in Devil's
Is that the
Advocate?
end? All right, sure.
No, not yet.
Oh.
I'm just preemptively.
Mate, this is your Devil's Advocate. I don't know what you're saying.
I understand what you're saying, but I also think that the EU as a bloc is incredibly strong, and we're seeing its international ties between it both itself grow ever closer, with Macron and Merkel signing recently this new treaty on shared defence and economic policy, and you're also seeing their crowd grow across the world as more countries look and hope to join, as the EU becomes stronger economically, and actually as the new superpowers of the world grows, the new world order emerges with China and the East having considerably more power. We need that kind of strong bloc to support us, and if we don't have that, we are going to be forgotten and swallowed up We are a country with delusions of grandeur. We've had them since empire, and we have not got the ability to maintain the amount or the level of influence we have now without the EU. That's my closing statement.
Okay, I have my closing statement. Alright. I kind of agree with you on that point, but, alright, so I kind of do agree with you on the fact that we will need an organisation to be part of as, you know, China goes stronger and the eastern countries go stronger. However, I believe that we already have that with the UN and NATO and organisations like that. We don't necessarily need the EU with us. First of all, we're not, you know, we use pounds, they use euros. We're completely different. Second of all, I believe that if we leave the EU, we will not be swallowed up. Maybe in the short term, people will think, why did we do that? Economically, I think the pound will take a hit. But in the long term, I truly do believe that it will be good for our country. I believe that we'll be able to establish ourselves more in the growing, ever-changing political climate. And I believe that our ties, especially with America, will get stronger, and we'll be able to forge new ties with more developing countries, like in Africa and East Asia. So yeah, that's my closing statement. Ollie.
And now we are on to our final section of the podcast.
Yay! Woo!
It's Dan with the top 3 biggest oopsies of the week.
It's me. It's my turn again. It's what everyone's been waiting for. Let's face it. Alright, here we go. So, number 3 on the top 3 biggest oopsies of the week. Oopsie whoopsie, oopsie doopsie. The government shutdown has reached, officially, a month. Well done, Trump. Well done, Pelosi.
Congratulations.
Well done, Democrats. Well done. Congratulations. You have, you know, stopped pay for 800,000 federal workers for over a month now, which is a great idea. You know, good job. That is a big oopsie doopsie, oopsie whoopsie, oopsie floopsie. Okay, second of all, this is going to be a personal one. Andrew Adonis, a Ramona on Twitter, has been taken and has taken a fat zing from Ollie on Twitter. Ollie, would you like to read out the response and the tweet?
I'm gonna read out the fat zing that Andrew Adonis, Lord Adonis, took from me. Lord Adonis of Camden Town. He tweeted, if Article 50 is extended or suspended, Brexit will either fizzle out in a hopeless quest for a new deal, or it be the prelude to a referendum. Since no deal can't be avoided without the extension of Article 50, and there is a Commons majority against no deal, Brexit looks to be over. And the fat zing he took was, oh no, at Andrew Adonis. If Brexit's over, what will you tell us about constantly and incorrectly? Shutting you up is the best argument for Remain.
Ooh. Good one, Ollie. That is a big oopsie whoopsie, oopsie doopsie, oopsie floopsie from Andrew Adonis there.
Just gonna have to big up. Follow me on Twitter at OliverClement35.
Yes, I agree. Follow him on Twitter. Now, the top, the top biggest oopsie doopsie of the week, oopsie doopsie, oopsie floopsie, oopsie kloopsie, is it's just gonna be a shout out. Big up Camilla here. Big up Cam. I don't know why I said that. It's just written on the notes. Just the entire country of Venezuela is an oopsie. Oopsie doopsie, oopsie whoopsie, oopsie floopsie. Well done, Venezuela.
Congratulations, Venezuela, for making top spot in the only table in the world.
Yes.
So, and just before we finish here, next week we're going to be doing a special section where you can send in your questions. Some political, some not political, and we'll give our best political and non-political advice and commentary on your questions. So make sure to send us in your questions for next week.
Please do.
Actually do send us in your questions next week. But for now at least, from the Comedy Relief Dan.
That's me.
Goodbye.
I'm not gonna say bye.
Okay.
I'm not saying bye because I love you all too much.
And from me, goodbye. We'll see you next week.